Welcome everyone to the second talk of this evening under the title Imagining Incubators for Designers. I'd like to welcome Nضال قنديلو, محمد عبيدات, ديما حمادة, وأدهم سليم على الstage, please. While most incubator programs both in Lebanon and Jordan target mainly tech-related startups, Nضال قنديلو will host a discussion with Mohammed Abedat, Dima Hamada, and Adham Salim, who will imagine an incubation program targeting specifically designers and other creative entrepreneurs. This event is organized by Takween. Nضال قنديلو will be moderating the panel discussion. You can start.
Thank you. Thank you for waiting. I know it's been a long day probably for most of you. So it's an interesting topic. I'm not going to make it long. We only have 45 minutes. We will try to get the audience engaged every now and then. So what we're talking about is something that's very important. We are making the assumption, which could be right, it could be wrong, that when there is an ecosystem approach to advancing an industry, such as the creative industries industry, that industry will survive and become more successful. And if you, let me just explain that in a minute. Ecosystem approach means that for an industry to survive, a number of things have to happen. There has to be the right infrastructure, the right policies in place, the right human capital that fuse that in terms of the artists and so forth and so on. There has to be access to market, access to funding, and support organizations. Today, we will zoom on two areas, the human capital and the support part, which is the incubation. We want to reach a conclusion at the end. Does incubation make sense for artists and creative industry people, as I call them, or not? And the panel is quite experienced. We have, I think, the right panel. Mohammed Abedat comes from a background of entrepreneurship. He's been there forever, 12 years, around 12 years. He's the director of the Queen Rania Center for Entrepreneurship. He is the director of the iPark Incubator in Shamal Start, as well as other locations. Works with startups all the time, mostly in the tech space, though. On the other hand, we have Adham and we have Dima, who come from Lebanon. Adham has done quite a bit of work in terms of policy, cultural policies. He writes a lot, intensively. He's published in reputable publications across the region, and he's an advisor for a number of design institutions as well. And I'll let him, when he speaks, I'm sure I did not give you justice. Fine. Same thing with Dima, who's also been the assistant director of the Beirut Institute for Design, yeah. She's also, sorry. Yeah, of course, that's what I meant. She's done a lot of work that spans contemporary design, contemporary art design, feminism, and technology. I'm not going to go there, obviously. So I'll let her as well speak to that a bit about. And she also she also participated in the arrangement of a number of exhibitions in Lebanon. So let me start by asking the first question, and I will ask that maybe to Adham. So when we talk about I call them the creative industries people. What are these? Artists, designers? Are they entrepreneurs? Are they self-employed people? Are they freelancers? How would you describe the creative industries people? I'm talking the ones that are actually doing the design.
I think it's a very interesting and important question to start from a point of definition, to know exactly what we're talking about. And when we're talking about the creative industry people, we're talking about a specific set of relationships governing a specific set of people. And in the specific case of Lebanon, where we came from, or the specific context that we came from, these people are mostly a group of young people, the majority being under 45 of age, 45 years of age. They mostly hail from backgrounds of design with architecture, graphic design, and interior design being the majors, the academic majors where they graduated from. Of course, they have to bootstrap at certain point of their life, so at least 50% of them worked for some of their lives as freelancers. The other half, according to some of the surveys we've done, either support themselves by working for others or working in academia as teachers. They are mostly a group of somehow self-employed or self-managed group of people. So the majority of businesses in Lebanon, particularly those working in the creative industry, particularly in design, we're talking about businesses that are running with 1 or 2 employees maximum, with maximum capital below the mark of 100K. And most of these funds are self-funded or coming from familial aid. This mostly means that they somehow span design, business, and freelance as sort of like one, or like they're sort of like sliding from here to there all the time.
Okay, so thank you. Dima, there's always a struggle for those, tell me if I'm correct, between the creative mindset and the business mindset. Do I design because I want to make money, or do I want to make money because I want to be able to design? So what's your take on that struggle, that conflict that happens all the time?
Well, I don't know if that's, I mean, it's usually like made to look like that, but I think most of the designers want to design in order to be, you know, to sell their designs. So in the end, there's a purpose. It's not like, you know, you have someone sitting, you know, and at home and just saying like you want to draw a sketch and that's it, and I'm a designer. Obviously, there is something behind it. You design in order to make money, in order to make more designs, in order to sell them and have. Sometimes you want to have like, social impact. You have to make some kind of change, but you also want to make money. So that's like a kind of a cycle. The question is whether there's a favorable ecosystem for that. And in that sense, I think, I mean whether there's a favorable regulatory system, there's the viable financing solutions, investments, human capital, as you say, like business training capacities, and definitely the supply, adequate supply and distribution chains. And these are very important to define, you know, where the designers stand and how they can actually respond to this question. So I don't know if you want to have an example, but I can give you an example. In Lebanon, for instance, to start a business for a designer to actually, to exist as a designer, designing and making something out of their design, you need a minimum of about $5,200 to just be a designer, to register. And that is like a minimum cost. So in that sense, you cannot exist without that.
This is an annual amount.
Yeah. So you cannot exist as a designer without that.
So it looks like when we were talking about designers, there seemed to be a consensus, and I'll come to you about that in a sec, that they are actually entrepreneurs. They are self-employed people who have a product that they want to produce, and they have to go to the market, which is, if you watch the Fabian talk a little bit before, it's actually the same business cycle. And in that sense, Muhammad has been working with entrepreneurs that were incubated for many years now. And if you're an entrepreneur, in addition to the fact that you have to design and sell your product, there's all these anxieties that come in. There's no security of a full-time job, no social security, no health benefits. You have to design and succeed on your own. It's already tough to get to the market and have product market fit to start with. And you have all the things to worry about, just such as the 5,000 JDs you have to pay every year. So from your experience, how are successful entrepreneurs able to deal with that? How are they managing all these anxieties?
Well, to manage the anxieties as an entrepreneur is not a thing that you can do. It's a roller coaster that you're joining, and you have to be fully in the moment you join. One day you're up in the heavens, and one day like you're going down. It's very tough. It's a roller coaster, and it's not a thing that you should expect yourself to manage. You should expect yourself to live it. And this is how we look at entrepreneurs from our perspective. It's not a career path that you're taking. It's a lifestyle that you're going into. So you have to be expecting a totally different shift in the way you live your life. Managing it is technically, this is why we push you to have a partner, a co-founder, someone you can trust, and a system of support for you. This is why there are incubators.
So you feel the systems of support have been helping?
I would say they've been doing the best they can, but they still have to do a little bit more. Looking at the first question that you've been talking about, guys, categorizing a designer as either an entrepreneur or a freelancer, we don't look at it. we don't look at it this way. A designer is a designer, someone who knows exactly how to create a product or to create a design or an artwork or whatever. That person, having said that he has the skill, he needs to decide what he wants to do. Either he can be a freelancer, and that's a very good thing, or he can be a very good employee within a company, or he can start his own business. So it depends on what he wants to do. So it's not a designer or a creative industry person has to fall under one of these. He can choose any of these depending on the capabilities that he has or she has, and depending on the passion that they've got. On the other hand, if they decided to become entrepreneurs, it's our role as incubators to try to create this ecosystem of support. It's a little bit missing some stuff. We've been talking just a few seconds ago about the problems that we face with the bias towards ICT. Today, if you talk to any creative industry entrepreneurs in Jordan, I didn't get the chance to work with people in Lebanon, but I did with some people in Egypt and with some people in the United Kingdom. They're always looking at us as incubators. You're the guys who work with technology. You don't look at us. And that's a problem. Today in Jordan, I'm happy that we have something like design. They're focusing on creative industry. We need more of things like this to create some sort of a push and support for the entrepreneurs in this creative industry. This is what gives them the chance to survive, as you were asking,
Okay.
and to sustain.
So let me take it back to Adam. Thank you. So he's saying, don't believe half what he said, by the way. It's just one of these things. That if you decide to become an entrepreneur, and sometimes you don't know that you want to become an entrepreneur, right? But let's say you're a designer, hardcore designer, you love to design, you have a job, you don't have all the time in the world to design what you want, you're frustrated because you want to design more, right? And let's say you get to the point where you decide, in order for me to succeed, I have to make money, and then you have to think as an entrepreneur. So I love a Harvard Business Review study that talks about freelancers and entrepreneurs, and they say that one of the things that help them survive is they create connections with four things: people, place, routines, and a purpose. So with the people, it means that they find people that they work with. An incubator or a co-working space could be that environment where they get the support, moral support from each other. The places where they go to a place to actually work, although they're not full-time employees, but they actually go in the morning and go in and work. It's as if they are a full-time employee with the freedom, though. Purpose, because they want to succeed and design. And of course, the routine of having that full-time job, although it's not a full-time job. So the argument of the study, which seemed to be the case, is that it created the right balance between the freedom to create and the commitment to a job as if it's a full-time job to be able to produce and get the discipline to do it. What's your take on this?
Well, Dima and I usually discuss this through our work and through our the research and the papers we produce in our work, and we very often fall into between like this binary between we either should like go full length at trying to fix the regulatory framework, like trying to fix the law, rig the system, make everything favorable so that everything can work perfectly so that the designers basically can make the best of whatever they can. Or we can basically look at whatever that we have now in the current ecosystem as it is and try to basically look at the potential or the points of the strength that basically lie there and basically use them. And I think what you just mentioned about the people, place, purpose, and routine, I think when it comes, for example, where we came from, people, I think people in like design, in the design scene in Lebanon, I don't think they sort of like lack the passion. Every day we sort of like, we encounter people who are so passionate. Perhaps the problem is we meet so passionate, they are so passionate that perhaps they cannot focus on the business. They cannot sort of like see the business side of or the profitable side of their business. They just need to focus on the design side. In terms of place, it's also a bit difficult when you think about how you be able to secure this, given the real estate value, the high real estate value in cities like Beirut. Also, when you come to think of this as a, if you think from the side, like the point of view of an incubator, how you can work with this and still make the incubator a profitable enterprise, so that like, how they can provide the space and still make money out of it. In a sense of purpose, I think also people in the creative industry, they are creative in the first place, so I don't think they lack the purpose. And in terms of routine, one of the very interesting things that we often find also in our research is many of the respondents of our surveys, the answer that besides their entrepreneurship work or their startups, they actually have full-time jobs. in order to support themselves. So it's not also that they lack the routine or they are not sort of like this kind of flaneur kind of entrepreneur who doesn't know what the routine looks like. Actually, quite the opposite. They have full-time jobs. They come from a very disciplined mindset. So I think it's just a question of how to create the right balance or the right cocktail that would basically make all of this in a profitable equation.
So thank you. So Dima, would based on this and what we said to now, do you think incubation, whether it's full-time incubation for profit, for not for profit, a co-working space, a group of virtual people that come together and meet at a Starbucks somewhere, do you think it's important and it will help in the success of designers everywhere?
I will start answering your question by probably going back to the point of freelancers, because that's important. I think it's mentioning freelancers as a category is to highlight the fact that this mode of work is just because designers cannot be entrepreneurs at this time. There is not, again, a favorable ecosystem to make them actually successful as entrepreneurs. So they have to create ways of working without the support, without the investor, without the co-founder, without without all these kind of elements. So being a freelancer is not something that you would choose to do. If there were like other possibilities and a kind of network, a kind of workplace, a co-working, like even a framework to work within that would actually support an entrepreneurship, then definitely designers wouldn't choose this very precarious mode of work. Like, you would be definitely much more unstable to be working in, waiting for a job to come in once in a while. You don't have you're running to find clients here and there instead of actually developing a certain product. So from that on, what we've seen is that within the current situation, designers have tried to search for things that are alternative to what we could think of as an incubator in the future, where they have developed their own support networks, their own collaborative models, their own, people have someone has a lab, they would get their friends to work in it, or someone would so they could develop their prototypes and things like that. So these modes are more like an example of how designers at this point they act in a mode of resilience. But when some other kind of form, a certain framework exists that could actually answer to their needs, then definitely.
So you have a bunch of, well, first of all, governments, in my opinion, will never get there.
Definitely,
That's just,
I guess.
what
we've seen.
I wish the time will come where somebody would come and do a task force, a digital transformation, or when I say digital, I mean transformational thing. Will say, okay, we want to create this industry, we want to make it happen, we want to push it. We'll look at all the ecosystem components, we'll work on them and make them. It can be done, by the way. That's why Germany is very successful, because the government has reached a maturity level where they're actually looking at that. But we're not there. I don't think we'll be there in a long time. So it's interesting so the question becomes, for the community, can there be any effort that can be in tandem with donors and international organizations that want to see that through, that can take whatever organic activity that's happening and say, okay, how can we take this to the next level? Do you see this happening as the ecosystem having a volunteer to start working on it, or how do you see that happening? How do we get to that point where we take this informal communities that you've mentioned and start, and I don't want to say formalize is the wrong word, scale them. How do we get them to scale and benefit others? What's your take on it? Let's start with you, Dean.
I think the bias towards ICT is mainly the fact that the current incubators, the current ecosystem doesn't really know or respond to the actual needs of design entrepreneurship. And I think that listening to or looking at those informal, if you call them informal kinds of scenarios that are currently existing, would make sense to develop further towards any kind of project of support. For instance, we were thinking, like, we talk a lot about what kind of, we did discuss what kind of incubator.
Oh, by the way, both of these people
we work together,
are co-founders of something called Archeolog. I think Archeolog sounds better, but that's not you there. And it's a crowdsourcing platform that looks at translation and publishing, correct?
Yeah.
So they're entrepreneurs as well. So they, anyway, sorry, keep going. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, well, well, that's well, we never really thought about that. But yeah, so I mean, we did think about what could be possible in terms of an incubator, in case, you know, that would be responding to for designers' needs.
Actually, just the other day we were in the Taqni space, quite wonderful space, and we were just discussing with a group of wonderful participants from Jordan and Lebanon the possibilities of collaboration as one of these alternative models, particularly as an alternative model to the current incubation acceleration ecosystem. Not an alternative as a replacement, but rather as a support or a parallel model to it. And particularly that Lebanon has a long history of these successful collaborative models that worked in the past, particularly in design. We have Interdesign in the 70s. It's one of the most successful design collaborations. We have also in the 70s, I think, L'Artisan de Liban. We have most recently in 2014, Beirut Makers, which is a collective that is specialized in digital manufacturing and fabrication. And I think they received an investment and an equity in the amount of, I think, $1 million quite recently. So their story was quite a success, and they didn't have to go through all the tech kind of process of pitching to a VC and doing all of this. They just started with very grassroots kind of collaborative effort.
What do you think of that?
Well, he mentioned something really good, which is the success that they managed to do, then they built on it. For us, the biggest challenge that we face, we run a fabrication lab here in Jordan, and we're so proud of it. It's one of the biggest in the world, and it's huge and everything.
Show off.
Yet we have a problem, and a big problem, to be honest, which is productization of design. First of all, let me say that I never came across, and this has been verified by several professors from universities in Jordan, they don't teach product design. And people look at product design as if, you know what, it's a design. So I'm a designer, I can make a product. This is not how it works. The product design itself is a huge process, and there is lots of science behind it. I don't know anyone who teaches that in Jordan. I don't know about Lebanon, but that's a big problem. The second thing, if we want to really boost it, then we have to look at the education of what is a product. What does it mean to design a product? This is really important. The second thing is, when we talk about incubators are important, but in order to make incubator for design successful, you have to show people that there is a chance for you to succeed as a design or creative industry entrepreneur. In Jordan, the biggest jump happened in ICT industry when Maktub acquisition happened. Everybody got excited, the hype jumped in, lots of people pitched their ideas, and we started having lots of money in that domain. Today, there is no reference point for the creative industry people in Jordan, at least, to say, you know what, that person succeeded in creating a product, so we can. We need to try to, even if we have to push it to very high limit to make one succeed, that would make others excited to join.
So that brings me to the whole business mindset component. Because designers, and they always get mad at me, I do a lot of work with design space, with designers. And there's always this, I'm an architect by training. So when I graduated, the idea of somebody arguing me that an arc is nicer than what I do is like, I just want to shoot the guy. And I say that, you know how it is. What designers are very, very big on their ideas. And the question is, if you want to have a product and productize it, whether it's a design or a gadget, let's talk about design now. You're a fashion designer. So how do you take that, take all your passion and your design language or aesthetics or preference and so forth and so on, put that in a product that the market wants, create the balance that I have to do something that maybe I'm not great fond of to be able to do the crazy stuff I want to do. There is a major disconnect with all, we must have worked with more than 200 designers so far. And it's about 90% of the cases is what? I have to think that way, then I go get a co-founder. It's fine. Let's get to the point where we need a co-founder. So, and then again, we go back to the question, incubation. So incubation is not just about the four things. I think it's about know-how. of how to take my ability to design and be able to productize that. I think it's okay to think that way. I wish I'm a great designer, to be able to take that and make money of it. So again, the question becomes, can something be done that we take those experiences from the past, as you mentioned, as well as experiences that say that incubation does help people that are incubated? Because the know-how gap is the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs across all verticals. I don't know if you know that, it's a major problem. Those people that are artists who want to go to the market, or entrepreneurs don't know how to do it. They've never run companies in their lives. So can the incubation network of whatever sort it is help bridge that gap as well? And can we take that and build on it? So can you, for example, meet with Taqni and talk about the work you do and do something that is a pilot across Lebanon and Jordan, and have a pilot that actually looks at that and looks at all the components necessary to succeed? I'm talking too much now, so I'm going to stop. So just going back to you.
I agree that
Somebody has to start somewhere.
yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
I'm not looking at you. I'm sorry. But somebody has to start somewhere, and we could speak here and leave, and nothing will be done about it. But can something be done? You'll find a lot of volunteers to help, by the way. They just need some leadership.
Go ahead.
Okay. I fully agree. Like there has to be a start at some point, and I fully agree that incubation would definitely help. Looking at the past and looking at whatever potentials that we have at the moment, learning from also case studies from Joe. Actually, isn't it a bit surprising that such a meeting is perhaps happens for the first time? I mean, like it's a bit strange that whatever that we're doing have been happening in Lebanon for the last number of years, and you have been here for also a number of years, and I think it's perhaps one of the first time that we have such an exchange. And I mean, such kind of exchanges help a lot with building this kind of regional know-how how things could work. So this is one thing. Another thing is also that we have to put in mind the shortcomings of existing incubation systems. The tick bias is one thing that we've spoken about. The current shortcomings of existing regulatory frameworks, particularly in Lebanon, for example. So I would just like tell you a very quick example about one of the very funny shortcomings in the regulatory framework in Lebanon. When you receive funds, okay, under the legal umbrella under which many designers or many entrepreneurs in Lebanon receive venture capital or equity funds, it's called the Circular 331. And according to this legal framework, they must spend a certain amount of money on marketing inside Lebanon. So for example, if your startup needs to do marketing in the UAE or in Jordan or elsewhere, you cannot. So it's just one of the funniest sort of like oxymoronical contradictions. Like you want to encourage people to do startups, but in the meantime, you discourage them from doing regional marketing.
So that will never change. In Arabic, we have a saying, الظلم على الجميع عدل. I don't know how to explain that in English. It means when everybody is under the same ridiculous circumstances, it's just fair because everybody's going through it. So I think if you look at all the successful, so by the way, Ilyas Saab is your maktub, isn't it? Is your maktub Yahoo stories, huh? In the design space? No, but I mean, he's a designer who made it, and he has very cheap dresses. Jesus Christ. Why would anybody pay $3,000 for dresses beyond me? That's not here or there. But I shouldn't be here now. So, but that's your story. There are a lot of stories for designers to look at in the region and say, okay, if I'm able to productize my design expertise and come up with a product and know how to go to the market, locally, regionally, and globally, then there's a chance. Just like any startup, right? The only difference I'd say for designers, if you're good, you don't care about competition, right? Because people would buy the design because it's great. If you're selling something and it's a tech thing, if there's heavy competition, you're killed. So the question becomes, there's the Zain space in Jordan, there's Taqni, there's you guys. I don't know who, maybe Taqni could be the area that would you connect with, or start that process, and maybe we have some kind of an incubation solution, not tech-based, but for designers, that can be tried on a pilot basis, informal network. The network effect is magnificent. I mean, it's huge. It just needs somebody to instigate it. So I think we're almost done in time. So I'm going to see if you guys would like to say a few last words each. Starting with
if I want to
the
say,
tech guy.
if I wanna say something, not to be biased against designers, the issue of designers not having the business acumen needed most of the time, it's the same issue that we face with mechanical engineers and
Absolutely, yes.
mechatronics
Correct,
engineers.
correct.
They love the product so much, but it's not a product. It's just an idea. It's a very beautiful machine, but it's not a product that you can sell. I would say it is there. Incubators should be able to help. In order for us to build something that the creative industry can benefit from, it has to go grassroots. It doesn't have to go through funding, donors, and believe me, money is the least needed thing. It has to do through us, Taqween, even activities like ADW here. We can do lots of cooperation on the grassroots. Let's not wait for governments or donors to join in. We have to do it ourselves. And I'd love to talk to you more about it, and we can invite even the guys from Taqween.
I can't agree more. I just wanted to say just the same. I think it's a matter of going grassroots. It's like this recipe about the San Francisco Bay Area that you have to receive a certain amount of money and make a certain success in a certain particular way might not exactly be the recipe to work here, and we have to find a way. So I don't see a particular way of doing this other than just sitting together and find it. So, yeah.
Dima, last was, and then I'm going to open it for questions.
I don't know. I mean, I can't agree. I think Adham said what I wanted to say. I think want to say that in our research, we just came to the moment where we said, and this would maybe you wouldn't like it. We kind of said that perhaps we should think of something else other than an incubator as a solution.
So whatever you come up with that addresses all the components
Yeah.
that you agreed on, we don't care if it's I'm not,
Call it whatever.
no one
Yeah,
cares.
well, exactly.
In fact, whatever is a great name. So I'm going to look at the Gote people first, because they have the money. See if anybody has any questions. Anybody has any questions or an opinion that you'd like to share?
So my background is in engineering. I started as an engineer, and now I'm a designer. But I think it's easy for me to see the sort of difference between the maker spaces that we have and why designers, I think a lot of the time they feel very intimidated by going into these spaces. Because one thing I realized about Jordan, I can't speak on behalf of Lebanon because my experiences are in Europe and here. And in Jordan, it seems as though a lot of designers don't see themselves as makers. They see themselves as designers only. We make things look beautiful. They don't see themselves as problem solvers, as people who can make the next big innovative thing. Whereas you have engineers who are the opposite. They see themselves as the people who are going to create the next big crazy thing, but they don't have the design skills to bring that to fruition. So I guess my question is, how do you see a space that marries both of these things together? Because, I mean, as a designer, a lot of the time I go to that Fab Lab in Amman, for instance, and there's machines there that I've used before, but the technicians don't know how to use. So I might as well go to Bayadir or an industrial area and get them to make something for me. But then I'm not allowed to use the machine because then suddenly I'm no longer an expert. So I think there's a lot of challenges in that space. And I was wondering how you guys would see the marriage of both design and innovation and engineering in one space.
If I may comment on one thing related to this, I totally agree. Bassam worked a lot with us, and he's one of our product design experts that we hire all the time. The biggest problem that we face that they get intimidated because they don't have any kind of background on education. What is a product design? If you ask a creative designer to come to you and tell him what is a product design, I doubt that he'll be able to tell you exactly how it works. This is why we need the education part. The second part, when it comes to not to be intimidated and join the space, is make the space more attractive for them, not only by colors. We're very good at making colors sometimes. We make it really beautiful and colorful, and we invest a lot on that. But the setup of the space itself should be open for collaboration amongst the people. It's not a silo. It's not a cubics. It's not a place where I sit in the corner. The design of it should make it more open. I believe that we should focus more on that, and that's a big cultural issue.
So my take is you have to look at the frame of mind. Frame of minds are keys, right? We don't look at them, frames of mind, sorry. The frame of mind of a designer unless we really understand how it works, you cannot give them a solution that they would adopt, right? So if you understand the frame of mind that it's someone whose mindset is not geared around what you said, the question is, can I do an incubation system or network if I don't know what they need that would work? In other words, I need to do a lot of social identity brainwashing, if you will, that it's okay to think as a business person, that I do have the potential to learn, that I just need to have the will to want to learn how to think in a business way, and at the same time to be able to design. So I agree with you, but the mindset is a big component. So whatever network solution that comes up has to look at the mindset as a big component they have to look at. Do you want to add anything?
Well, I fully identify with the kind of problem or the kind of sentiment you're talking about, because also we have it more or less in Lebanon in more or less the same way. But my comment on that would be basically that one of the things that such spaces, either incubators or whatever we call it, maker spaces, one of the functions is basically to help people unlearn how they used to think about what they do. So some of this unlearning is basically abandoning existing modes of thinking about whether it is design or engineering. And one of the things also that sprung through my head when you were talking, like, does it necessarily have to be like just one person doing like both, like doing the whole 9 yards, doing the engineering and the creative side of things? Because more often you would find, I don't know, a specialized engineer who would basically solve the engineering problems, and then a creative who would basically do the I don't know.
So the business mindset will get you to accept that I need a co-founder. She understands how to do business development. She understands how to do sales. I'm the designer. The realization that I need a co-founder and going to find one is a major step forward, right? Because now suddenly you have a business. So you don't have to even worry about it yourself, but get to the mindset that you're willing to accept a co-founder. Maybe it would be a good start. Other questions or comments?
Hi, my name is Khadija. I'm representing Recoded House in Erbil, Iraq. And Rusul and I are female graphic designers from Iraq. I really love the point that you guys said. What this is all about is networking, collaboration. What we need most is leadership. And I would like to ask you guys, what I think you have more developed design scenes than we do. We're working on it. What does leadership look like? What does it mean? And how can we create it? Go.
So leadership means so there's two kinds. There's the influence-based leadership thing, where no one appointed you as a leader, right? The leadership I think we're talking about now, there's no one that's been appointed, but it's somebody or an entity who would say, this makes great sense. If I do it for my constituents here in Jordan, if I connect with Lebanon and Iraq, and I have a network now, and I create and benefit from all these things, then I will benefit my constituents, so people that work under my jurisdiction. And if I do that, I'll benefit them, and at the same time, I will drive a regional thing. So leadership means that person that jumps in and says, I want to run with this, and I will start talking to those people. We leave here, and that person comes on and say, hey, can I have the business cards? They start a discussion. So you know what I mean by leadership? It's more of, I am taking charge of making this happen informally. And hopefully somebody will hire you someday and make a lot of money.
It's more of an ownership.
It's more of an ownership thing. The thing is, if you sit with everybody individually, they will tell you it's a great idea, but then it dies off, like many things in the Arab world. All it needs is just get the people together, and then momentum and positive energy will start to come out, and it'll take a shape of its own.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Imke. I'm working for Goethe Institute Lebanon. We are implementing a sister project of Fantasmeme. The project is called Fantasmeme. It's also, the aim is promoting upcoming designers in Lebanon. And I'm very interested in the point you raised up. You mentioned we don't need to wait for the government. We should empower the grassroots level. Do you, all of you being on the stage, see a potential on the long run, once the grassroots level would have been empowered, that there could be a chance for governmental structures to build up at least some components of an ecosystem in order to support cultural industries?
I have to say absolutely yes. We started our incubator in Jordan in 2003. At that time, the government had no interest in entrepreneurship or innovation whatsoever. And we kept working. Like we got no attention, zero, whatever from the government. Yet we continued. We received really great applicants, really great ideas. Some of them are very successful right now, and we're very proud of them. When the movement started growing, successes started to happen. People got more excited about it. That where the government noticed that, oh, you know what? Let's jump in. I was kind of unhappy on some levels where the government jumped in. I was just hoping that they would stay away, but they jumped in, which is somehow it's a bit good, like in some cases. But yes, if you start from the grassroots, believe me, the movement will happen and it's gonna grow, and we've seen that happening.
And if you look at an ecosystem components, the government is just one. The support organizations are not government. The human capital is not government. Access to funding is not government. If they see a good business, the money will jump in. Access to market is not government. Government is only on the policy side, and that is moving. So the commercial side, if you make it happen, and momentum starts in terms of finding products that's something the market wants, everybody falls in place. So really, the government component is just they don't want them to be in the way, which they're smart enough not to when the time comes. Anyway,
actually, I fully agree with Muhammad and Nidal. Usually, in Lebanon in particular, since we don't really have a very strong interventionist government when it comes to like dictating what should and shouldn't happen. I think this has been the case for the last, I don't know, 50, 60 years in the history of Lebanon. Things happen and then the government would follow up on that. So I think whatever happens, basically the government would have to adapt.
Listen, it's not because governments are bad. It's because they're big. I mean, you could be in a big, mobile operating company. And because they're so big, it takes them a long time to come up with new products and go to the market. And typically, look at Nokia. I mean, Nokia is the biggest example. So by the time government, they get to the point where they want to do something, the market says, hey, it makes sense. It's an easy decision for them. So really, it's not, they don't want to stop it. They want economic prosperity, right? It's just they're too big to make agile decisions, which is what innovation requires. That's. Any more questions? Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Dima, Adham, Muhammad, for being here. I know it's late. Thank you so much.
Thank you.